Let's examine the output of show IPv6 interface brief. In this output, what I want to focus on is that Gigabit Ethernet 0/0 has an IPv6 address assigned to it. Now, this is a link local address, an address that starts with FE80 that is designed for basic IPv6 communication on a local link. Therefore, out this interface of Gigabit Ethernet 0/0, R1 can only communicate with devices on that local link using IPv6. It's not a routable address. It can't route to other places on the network. It is for local communication within that local area network. So anybody else who has an IPv6 address in this part of the network here off of R1's interface of Gig 0/0, then we'd be able to communicate with them using that particular link local address, but we wouldn't be able to get anywhere else using that address. How is this address assigned to the interface? If we look at the output of show run interface Gigabit Ethernet 0/0, we'll see that there is no IP address, or pardon me, IPv6 address command that assigned it to the interface. This was assigned to the interface because we typed in IPv6 enable. So this is one way that you can get a link local address on an interface. Just tell the router, hey, I want you to speak IPv6 on this interface, and the router goes ahead using the IPv6 enable command, and then the router goes ahead and gives itself a link local address. So how else can I assign a link local address? I can do it statically. So we're going to type in configure terminal here. I'm going to go to interface Gigabit Ethernet 0/1, and we can say IPv6 address, and then we can specify our link local address statically. So IPv6 address starts off with FE80, and then I'm going to put double colon, because now I'm going to identify the interface portion. So I need another 64 bits of addressing information here. So FE80 double colon is going to represent the first 64 bits, and then I'm going to put in the latter 64 bits here. So what interface is this? This is Gig what? Gig 0/1 connected up to R2. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in 12 colon 1. So 12:1. So the way I've addressed this is that essentially it's FE80 colon 0 colon 0 colon 0 colon 0 colon 0 colon 12 colon 1. That's really what it breaks down to. So the 12 represents that this is the link between R1 and R2, and then the 1 represents it being R1. Nothing fancy about that. And then we'll type in link local. So this is a link local address. Going to hit enter there. And now we are going to take a look at the output of show IPv6 interface brief. And we'll see here that we have that link local address assigned statically now. Let's go ahead over to R2 and do the same thing, but we'll put 12 colon 2 instead on R2, and then we'll issue a ping to see if we have basic connectivity. So on R2, type in configure terminal. We'll say interface Gigabit Ethernet 1/0 IPv6 address FE80 double colon 12 colon 2 link local show IPv6 interface brief. We'll see here that our address is there. So let's ping. Let's ping FE80 colon 12 colon 1. So that is R1's Gig 0/1 interface. Now it's asking me, what output interface do you want to use? Now, why is it asking me this? It's asking me this because a router can use the exact same link local address on all of its interfaces. That's right. Why is that? Because remember, the link local address can only be used to communicate on that local area network. It's a non-routable address. So I could use the same link local address on all of my router interfaces, all of them, on R1. On R2, have all the same link local addresses there. So R1 is going to have its own link local addresses, R2 is going to have its own, but they could be on the same on those routers. And as a result of that, I'm saying, all right, I'm going to ping R1 here, its link local address, but what interface am I going to use from R2? Am I going to use Gig 1/0? Am I going to use Fast Ethernet 0/0? So this is why it's asking me that, because you can have the same link local address used on all of that router's interfaces. It's just the way it's designed, because it's link communication. So there'd be no conflicts anyways with anybody else on the network. So output interface is what? In this case, it's gig 10. So I'm telling you, you have to go out gig 10. So it's looking for the actual name perfectly spelt like this. And there we go. The ping was successful. So that's the static assignment of link local addresses to our router interfaces.